Yo, what is going on, guys? XpertFusion here, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a video where we go over one of my biggest issues with the past couple Call of Duty games, and is also going to obviously be an issue for Vanguard as well. I like making videos on things I don't like about COD because it, obviously gives feedback, and it's constructive feedback. It's not like, just being negative for the sake of it, which a lot of people like to do. It's constructive feedback, and I like to do it specifically on topics where I don't see many people talking about it. Now, if I see a topic that's being talked about a lot, like skill-based matchmaking or just general issues with the beta, like I see Exclusive Ace making a bunch of videos on like visibility issues and such, and that's great. Those are definitely issues that need to be addressed, but I like talking about the issues that either a lot of people don't agree with me on, or I just simply don't hear anyone talking about. And I like that because I'm trying to make my argument for why I don't like these things. And today we're going to be talking about the created class system that's been implemented ever since Modern Warfare and has returned in Cold War and now returning in Vanguard. Now, of course, they've made little changes here and there to the class system, but not really in a major way. All they've done for Cold War was add some wild cards, which definitely made the system a little bit better, but it didn't fix the issue. And then, of course, this game, Vanguard, all it did from Modern Warfare was just add 10 attachments instead of 5 attachments, which I still think is crazy. But let's talk about my issues with it. We're going to talk about every issue I have with it, and then we're going to go into a solution, because that's the best way to give feedback, is to actually give a solution. Let me just make it clear that I don't necessarily have a problem with the Gunsmith part of the system. I have a problem with the system as a whole, because the actual Gunsmith itself, having all those attachment options, is pretty cool. It definitely gives a lot of customization for your weapons, but that does not mean it's going to give it the most amount of customization that it possibly could give for the entire class system. I like that we have a lot of attachment options, but I don't like how those options are implemented into the class system itself. So let's talk about it. So first of all, with Vanguard, having 10 attachments is way too much. Because look, you're going to be using every single slot, like at least, in Modern Warfare and Cold War, you'd have only 5. So you had to make a choice. There was some slots that you wouldn't use. Obviously in Cold War, you could use up to 8 if you have the wild card, and then you'd be using all of them. But normally you might just have 5. If you use the wild card, that gives you more perks, and you'll just have 5. And then again, in Modern Warfare, you're only going to have 5. So you're not going to use every single slot. But with this, you're going to use every slot every single time, because there's 10 total slots, I believe, for different items, and there's 10 attachments you can get. Why would you ever not have 10 attachments? There would be no reason not to. Only time you're not going to have those 10 attachments is either if there's a camo challenge that forces you to have no attachments, or before you actually earn 10 attachments on a particular weapon. But once you get 10 attachments unlocked, every single gun you ever use is going to have 10 attachments. It's going to have every single one of those slots filled up. And I don't like that. I find that to be kind of boring. I like having a choice. I like being like, okay, should I use a sight? Should I use a suppressor? Should I use a grip? Or should I use like this or that? There's no choice here. It's just which of the stocks, which of the grips, which of the suppressors, which of the barrels, which of the sights should I use? That's all you're questioning. And the reason why I don't think that's much of a question is because 9 times out of 10 within the past couple CODs, they have not really balanced the attachments out very well, so I find myself using the same attachments anyways. The only choice I make in the Gunsmith is, okay, should I use the stock instead of the grip, or whatever it may be, but there's a pretty clear choice as to which is the best stock, which is the best grip, which is the best barrel. Pretty much every gun, there's one obvious one, and there's no reason to use any of the others. So now that we have 10 attachments, I feel like I'm going to use the same attachments on literally every gun, and it's going to make customization basically inexistent. Having less options sometimes adds more customization. It doesn't sound like it would, but it does. And in this case, it completely takes away any chance for variety. I'm guarantee I'm going to use the same stuff, and I don't have any reason to change it around. And just by looking at the beta, I can already see that's going to be the case, because there's a lot of attachments that I don't see why I would ever want to use those attachments, because they don't seem very useful. I'm probably going to use the same attachments. That's kind of boring. And the next big issue is that there's no trade-offs, and no trade-offs equals to less balance, and less balance equals to less variety. Just like what I was saying, I should be able to choose if I want less of something for more of something else. That allows for a lot more variety. Maybe there's certain guns that don't really need 10 attachments. Maybe there's a gun that I only really want 8 attachments on it. I don't want a sight on this gun. I don't want a barrel. So I just want 8 attachments, and then I want to use those 2 points of stuff for something else. Maybe I want to have another perk, or maybe I want to have another another lethal or tactical or whatever it may be. Let me choose between more things rather than being forced to have a specific amount for everything. And this goes for the entire class. maybe I don't want to run secondaries. Maybe I don't want to run equipment. I don't use frags. I use them because they're in the game, but like I don't like using them. I would prefer not to have them because I usually don't see a use for them. I would go without frags and be very happy. I would. I don't need that many attachments on most guns, especially with having 10 available options. I don't need that many. In terms of my secondary, I rarely use my secondary. I would rather just max out my primary gun and get rid of my secondary. There's so many other options I want to do with this class, but I just can't do it because the game doesn't allow it. And I feel like that's a massive negative. And when it comes to perks as well, a lot of the times the perks are in a way where I would prefer to have more perks from one tier than I would from another tier, and they always have these, especially in this game, there's a lot of perks that feel like crutches, like radar, for example. I feel like in Modern Warfare, Ghost was definitely a crutch, and there was a couple other perks there that felt like crutches, but at least if you're allowed to use more than one perk, and I think Cold War did a good job with this, at least better than Modern Warfare did, where you can use the different wild cards to change up your perks and stuff, but at the end of the day, it wasn't fixing the issue, it was just helping it out a little bit. But in this game, we don't even have that, so I'm just sitting here like, I don't want to be forced to use the same perk on every single class, basically, because I just don't see any chance or any reason to use any others in that specific tier, so why not let me maybe just not use, you know, another attachment, and I can just get another perk 3 or something, because maybe there's more perks in perk 3 that look useful or something. Those options and that variety is what pick 10 gave us, and Gunsmith doesn't do that. It does not. Now, does that mean we have to have pick 10 instead of Gunsmith? No. And let me explain why. We're gonna hop right into my suggestion for how to fix this big issue, because this is a big issue to me. It takes away variety and customization, and I don't have as much fun customizing classes as I would in prior games. So what is my solution? My solution is pick 18. So that sounds crazy. Pick 18, we've had pick 10, we've had pick 13, now we got pick 18. Yes. So how do I decide how many points you should be getting for a specific class? Well, it's pretty simple. You just look at what the default would be, what the default should be for a class. And I kind of based off of the Modern Warfare system because that made the most sense to me. You get one primary with 5 attachments, one secondary with 5 attachments, one perk 1, one perk 2, one perk 3, one lethal, one tactical, and one field upgrade. I decided to include field upgrades as part of the class system as well because some people might not want to run a field upgrade, and that's completely fine. I think we should give people the options, and I love having those options because guess what? That stops spam. People might not have as much field upgrade spam. They might not have as much frag spam because guess what? They have options. They can choose more perks and not use those crappy things that we don't want to see thrown around in lobbies 24/7 because I hate frag spam. I hate concussion spam, and it wouldn't happen as much if people had the option not to run it and run something else instead. It's such a simple solution. Okay, let's just hop into this pick 18. So like I said, you get 1 point for each of these different things. And essentially, if you want to get, let's say, more attachments, you have to use wildcards, just like you did within the pick 10 system. And a wildcard, you have to use like 1, and it'll allow you to get an extra attachment, and you could add an extra attachment. So if you want to have a primary with 10 attachments, like what we have in this game, it's going to cost you a bit. You're not going to be able to do that without having a massive penalty for the rest of the class. And that's good in my opinion. You should not be able to just easily have 10 attachments on your primary just willy-nilly. It should be like a prestigious thing where you're like, okay, I am a badass with my primary, but I don't have a secondary, I don't have many perks, I don't have many tacticals or whatever, lethals, I don't have many of that, but my primary is a beast and it's gonna dominate like everyone else. That is how it should be. Maybe you want to max out your secondary, sure, but you might have to get rid of your primary for that if you want to max that out fully. Maybe you want 6 total perks, cool, but you're probably not going to be able to use as many attachments. You might only have like 3 or 4 attachments on your primary, but if I don't use a secondary or equipment, then I could probably get 6 perks while also using still a primary with 5 attachments, as long as I don't use a secondary or lethals or tacticals. That's fair too. There's so many options you have here, and I feel like the only reason they decided to change this, they went from pick 10 to this Gunsmith, is because they wanted to make it a little bit simpler. And I would say the Gunsmith system is a lot easier for people to keep track of. Like, it doesn't have much complexity to it like what pick 10 would have, and I kind of think that's why they did it, but I don't see why pick 18 would have to be complicated. Like, it's not, you by default you can still have the same exact amount of items as you would in like Modern Warfare. Why not just let us choose between other stuff too? Like, I don't think it makes it too complicated, and if it really does, then I don't give a shit. Like, make it better for the game. Don't just make it because it's gonna make people who play the game once a year happy, because I can care less now. I honestly can. I don't think people are gonna stop playing Call of Duty because they have more options. That just doesn't make any sense to me, but if that's the case, I don't know. Again, I think Gunsmith is cool. I think having all these options is cool, but why not implement that with the whole system and make the whole system have more options rather than just having more attachment options? Because just having more attachments does not automatically make it have more customization as a whole, because it does not. Let me tell you that it does not. I don't feel like I have nearly as much customization in Modern Warfare and Cold War as I could in, let's say, Black Ops 4 or Black Ops 3 or Infinite Warfare, because those class systems I could completely tailor to how I like to play, completely. And I never felt like I was using the same things every class, never. There was always so much variety there. The only time I felt like I was using the same things were for the attachments, to be honest, because they didn't have many attachment options, which is why I love how the Gunsmith adds so many more options. They just need to balance them out a little bit better, but I like all those attachment options in the Gunsmith, but you have to make that work with the rest of the class, so everything has variety, not just the attachments, which, with, like I said, with 10 attachments, you're not going to have variety anyways, so that's just unfortunate. I'm not a big fan of that system. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I will see you on my next one. I think my next video with the same sort of, like how I'm talking right now, the same sort of structure, is probably going to be based on score streaks. I want score streaks back. I think you guys know that. I'm going to talk about why the kill streak system sucks in Vanguard, and we'll talk about a solution, and that'll be fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you on my next one. Peace out.